I can't believe this. It's so nice that so many of you took a moment to come listen to me prattle on. And I just want to say I love Comic-Con. The vibe is the best here. I wish it went on year-round. You'd be exhausted, but it's just the best. And I came here, they asked me how many times I've been here, and I don't know, I'm going to say 10, but also don't forget, the first 6 of those, I wasn't famous at all. I was here, you know, to take in all the artists and all the interesting stuff that was being presented, and it was before films and TV became such a big part of this. It was more artists, you know, like illustrators.
They still have that actually downstairs, and I think there's less studios this year, so it feels more like old school Comic-Con, and it's fantastic.
Great.
I have a ton of questions for you. Let's get started. If someone has never seen anything you've done, what is the first thing you'd like them watching and why?
Mr. Show. The Milk Machine in Joke the Musical, which is a sketch that I wrote for the Ben Stiller show. But wait, why don't I go with Manson Lassie? Yeah, from the Ben Stiller show, Manson Lassie. It's on YouTube.
A lot of people don't know that you worked on SNL and you wrote on SNL. What's like your memories of working on the show, and what do you think would surprise people to learn about what it was like backstage?
Unpleasant. It was, you know, you're in the trenches, it's boot camp, you don't have enough time to make the show. That's part of the thing, is we're going to do a show, but we're not going to have enough time to actually do it. And that's the fun. And it's hard and frustrating, and you've heard all the stories, and there are a million books, so I'm not adding anything new here. But I guess, the stress is through the roof, yeah. And it's a great show that carries on, and they keep making stuff. I think they've gotten a little kinder over there. I've been there a lot, and it seems like people are nicer to each other, which is good.
A lot of people don't realize that you created Matt Foley for Chris Farley.
This is the motivational speaker. Chris said, the guy says, I'm living in the van down by the river. That was a character that Chris did. So I was in the Second City show in Chicago. I was a writer. I was a writer at Saturday Night Live. And in my 3rd year, my friend Tom Giannis, who was going to direct the main stage show at the Chicago Second City Theater, very famous theater in Chicago, great comedy theater, and he invited me to be in the main stage show. The only problem was I was a writer on Saturday Night Live, so I had to work. But I wasn't an important writer on Saturday Night. That was the little trick. And so for the second half of the season, I would work Monday and Tuesday at Saturday Night Live, and on Wednesday, after read-through, I would fly to Chicago. Lauren did not know this. I would be in the improv set Wednesday night, then I would do the improv set Thursday night, then on Saturday morning I would fly back to New York, and my friends Conan O'Brien and Robert Smigel and others would cover for me. But of course, I wasn't important, so I wasn't missed. But then there I was Saturday, like, let's go. Acting like I've been there the whole week. But I was writing this show with the Second City cast that we then did that summer, and one of the pieces that I wrote was motivational speaker, because Chris had done a version of Matt Foley, a coach. He played this character, you know, in improvisations. And we had done an improv where we were doing a drug, anti-drug rally, and he had done a version of the coach, and man, that stuck in my head, and I went home that night and I wrote that sketch exactly the way it's done, which is a rare thing in any kind of writing. We usually do a lot of rewriting. And so it's just very special to me, and as was Chris, to all of us. You know, it's such a, yeah. And if you don't know Chris, Chris's work, sit down and watch some of his movies and just know that you're seeing about 1/5 of what he was capable of. He could have done drama. He did a few quieter scenes at Second City, which doesn't always go balls to the wall comedy. It sometimes does a more dramatic comic moment, and he did a few of those. He could have done dramas. He could have done everything. It's a terrible shame what happened there. And he was also a beautiful guy. I love him.
Steve Carell, do you do you still think about like that kind of role and what you might have done with it, or do you sort of think like Steve kind of nailed it?
Oh, he nailed it. Steve Carell killed it. I would not have beaten him at that game. What I would have done is a different Michael Scott and probably a sadder. People are up for sad in prime time. I would not have beaten him. I was very thankful to see him do it and do it so well. And I know everybody from that cast, and I love all those people. And Greg Daniels, who did that, put that show together, is an old friend of mine. He came to Saturday Night Live with his writing partner Conan O'Brien 4 shows after I got there. Those guys showed up, I believe, in January. I was there in November, and we all worked together for that. I believe Greg was there a year and a half, and during that time, me, Robert Smigel, Conan, and Greg did a lot together. And so I knew Greg well, and did a wonderful job adapting that show. And I'm a huge fan of the American Office and the British Office, which I think, I want to say, of all of us, I think Ricky Gervais's performance in the British Office is one of the best acting performances ever, anywhere. Daniel Day-Lewis, relax. Sit down and watch this guy.
Audition of your career.
Shy McBride auditioning for Let's Go to Prison, which is a movie I directed. And Shy came in to audition. And here I've been in Hollywood for 15 years, 18 years, whatever. And I've been on many auditions. And he came in to read for this part. And he's not looking at the script. It's like a 1.5-page monologue. And he fucking nails it to the wall hard. You could have shot that audition, and it was perfect. And I'm sitting there watching it going, oh my God. Remembering every audition I ever went on, holding my script, bumpering around, not knowing the lines, and thinking there's actors like this out there. And that's why I never got an audition. That's why I never got a part from an audition. It's because there's actors like this out there. And from that point on, I didn't audition much in my life, and I certainly didn't audition much from that point on, but I did learn from that if you're an actor, don't go in that audition unless you're going to absolutely kill it. Because if you don't, somebody's going to, of the people auditioning for that role, somebody's going to walk in there and just beat that part up. And you better be ready to do that, or don't do it, say no. So that audition really taught me, and it made me think about not just auditioning as an actor, but everything you do. You know, this is we're lucky to be in this business. We're lucky to have the opportunities that we do get. You better show up to kill it, you know, or you shouldn't be doing it.
I realized that when Breaking Bad first came out, yes, Breaking Bad. Out, Mad Men was a show, and I remember doing a red carpet for Mad Men, and they brought out the Breaking Bad people, like, please talk to them. You know what I mean? It was, you know, because at the time, no one had any idea what that show was going to become. Right. And I'm so curious, when did you first realize, oh wait, people are watching this show, and it's becoming real popular?
I would say it was around the 4th season, you know. I was told that show Breaking Bad was almost canceled after the first and after the second season. I was at the end of the second season. I started with them, and then I worked on the 3rd season, and still struggling the show to get noticed, to get talked about, and certainly in light of Mad Men, which was a massive success from the word go, and just huge, and it was in every part of pop cultural life. It was in fashion, it was big on in every venue that you saw the words Mad Men, it was everywhere. And then somewhere around the 4th season of Breaking Bad, after the first 3 seasons had been on Netflix was new, and people were new to the idea of streaming, and they had watched those first 3 seasons just, in a weekend. And so the 4th season ratings were massive. And you could just feel it. But the crazy thing with Breaking Bad was that, man, it kept growing and it kept growing. And that final season, the last time I was at Comic-Con was our appearance here for the final season, the 6th season of Breaking Bad. It was a huge event. And of course that show continued to grow and continues to grow around the world.
What do you think might surprise people to learn about the making of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul?
Well, I'm surprised to learn. I'm surprised when I hear the stories from the writers, Vince Gilligan and various writers, about the number of story elements that seem not worked out, like not planned. And they're like, we didn't know what. I think even Vince said once, like, remember the season with the bear and the eyeball, the teddy bear? Right? What was that? 5? 4 or 5? Anyway, come on. 4? 3. Then he said he didn't know what it meant when he put that in the pool. Like, how could that be that you don't know? But he has told these stories many times. I've read them. I've heard him tell these stories of, we didn't know where this was going to go, or how about the first season where they were going to kill Jesse? And that was how that story was meant to play out, except there was a writer's strike, and the show had to end after 7 episodes. And so then they hadn't killed Jesse yet, and then they thought, wait, what were we going to do? No, we shouldn't do that. Like, how? I don't.
By the way, there's something else.
Wait, we're not supposed to speak that at all. No matter.
I think that when Bryan Cranston pulls out the machine gun in the trunk, they also didn't know what that machine gun meant.
Really?
Like the big shotgun thing. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it was crazy.
That's like amazing, and I would like them to take a lie detector test on all of these claims.
Better Call Saul was a prequel and a sequel to Breaking Bad. So nobody's recording this or watching you say the answer. Which is your favorite?
Well, Breaking Bad was a hell of a lot easier. But I would say, for me, one of the things, because listen guys, I was not an actor when I was invited to play Saul Goodman. I was a guy who acted once in a while for fun. I love sketch comedy, I loved writing sketch comedy. When I was a young man and wanted to go into show business, my dream was to be like Chris Guest or Albert Brooks and be kind of better known as a writer. Albert's a great performer too, they're both great performers, but I loved their writing, and my Python was my gold standard for a sketch show. And so I wanted to write something like that, and that was my dream. And I took one acting class at Southern Illinois University where I went to school, and Salukis, go Salukis, and then I did one play when I was 21 just to do it, just to see what it was like. I did the play Line by Israel Horowitz in Chicago at the Prop Theater. It was my first production. And but I didn't pursue acting gigs, as I shared with you. I didn't try very hard at auditions. And so when I got Saul, I was expecting to be let go. I actually expected to go to Albuquerque and have someone pull me aside and go, we met the other Bob Odenkirk, who went to Juilliard, who has training. And so Saul was, as hard as it would have been for anyone, it was really, really a difficult thing, a very stressful thing to take on. And getting through it, I learned a lot about acting. I learned how to do it. And so it was rewarding. It's very rewarding to do something that hard.
I'm actually curious, how did your career before getting the role actually help you, impact you, inform you of playing the role?
The only thing I had to work with when I sat down to try to learn the part on Better Call Saul was writing. I had been a writer, and so the first thing I did was just sort of deconstruct the words that they had written. You know, what is the plot that's moving here? What is the character? What is his energy? What is his attitude? And I just basically did what a writer would do with any script if you were asked to rewrite it. So I've been a writer for 25 years. I've been very serious about it, and that helped me then become an actor, to just take it apart that way. Yeah.
Both shows that you'll always remember because of its difficulty or the emotions of going through it, like, you know, because I'm sure you don't, like, not everything comes to you when you know.
My favorite scenes, and I don't know what episode it's in, is Saul has taken Jesse to see his girlfriend and her son Brock. You know, he has this relationship, and I take him and I send him in to go talk to. I talk to them, and then I send him in, go in and talk to them on scene. And it's a really interesting moment because Saul is a pretty shallow guy, mostly, and it's a moment where he does something that's selfless and has resonance, emotional resonance, beyond whatever he needs in the moment. He's asking a person to go see some people who love him. It's about, you know, he just doesn't need to do this. And he's usually a guy who doesn't do anything he doesn't need to do. And so it's a subtle scene, it's not a loud scene. I don't cry, I don't scream, but it has just such emotional texture to it. And being invited to do that kind of scene means more to me, which is to say a character who's kind of conflicted, but is not broadly or loudly acting it out. You know, a lot of actors, I think, love scenes where they scream and rant. They love scenes where they cry. I love those scenes I got some in Fargo too, where the character who you've known maybe in a simplistic way has on their face and in their heart a complexity or a dimension that you haven't seen yet, that you don't ascribe to them, that you don't associate with them, but it's all right there, but they're not sort of expressing it in a simple, declarative way.
They just announced that at the Toronto International Film Festival this year, your film with Ben Wheatley, called Normal, is going to be part of Midnight Madness. And just for people who don't know Ben Wheatley, check out his work. But what can you tease about that movie?
Well, it's a suspense comedy action film. And Derek Kolstad came up with the original story, wrote the script. Derek wrote John Wick, the originals, and he wrote Nobody. And he's a good friend, and he's a big action writer. He's maybe the best. And he showed me a couple outlines of stories he had. And this one, Derek sort of goes for the jugular very fast in his stories. And this was one that had a slow burn. And I go, that's the one I want to do. I want to do the one that isn't an action film for a little while. It has to find its way to that place and has like texture to it that isn't normally associated with an action movie. And so we went that way. And Ben Wheatley was based on what I just said, and I think you know the perfect director. He does films with action in them, but they have humor throughout, plays throughout. They have a kind of a complexity to them that a lot of action movies don't try to even attempt.
I'm a huge fan of that film, and you kicked so much ass in it. This is yours.
I had to.
But you've never really done a role like that. You hadn't done a role like that prior to making it. How confident were you before stepping on set that you could actually pull off this role?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I was, look, I wouldn't say I was scared. I should have been scared. There's so many things I've done in my life where it's like, you should have been really scared, dummy. On some level, I had nothing to lose. I mean, you guys weren't thinking I could pull it off. And if you would have said he sucked, I would have been like, yeah, I'm Bob Odenkirk. What did you think it would work? I didn't think it would work. Of course, I wanted it to work. I tried like hell to make it work. But if it hadn't worked, I would have been like on your side. I would have been like, stupid. It's crazy. Look, I wouldn't be in showbiz if I wasn't willing to risk a lot. You don't even go into this business if you're not willing to take some crazy risks. And it's one of the fun things about the business. And I do think that I had established one of the reasons I even did it at all was I knew that people had watched Better Call Saul around the world, and that character, the components of that character are the components of an action character. He's indefatigable. He never, ever quits. He's clever, and he gets into corners constantly and thinks of ways out, or tries to think of ways out. And he's very committed to those plans. He's kind of, you can't stop Saul, right? He actually, one of his problems is that he gets carried away. He's almost overcommitted to the different plans that he cooks up. And he sort of can't see the fault lines in his somewhat weak structural plans. And so he is an action character. He just doesn't fight. So all I had to do was add the fighting to it. And I knew I was in good shape. Pre-heart attack. I'm still in good shape. And that's really nice to meet you. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And what was that strap? Did CPR. So I knew that I'd be willing to train, you know, and I knew that I had sort of the earnestness. It's almost a fault for me. And you know, you asked about The Office and that audition, and Steve and I were in the running for that. In fact, one time I was in New York during that whole run, and an NBC exec came over to me, and we're walking into a club to see a comedy show that my friend David Cross is putting on, and he goes, "Hey, want to know something? It's between you and Carell." And I was like, oh, it's wrecking my night, man. I gotta think about that now. I always had, even in comedy, and I'm surrounded by these great talents, and all those years I spent in sketch comedy, surrounded by people, I'm surrounded by Chris Farley, Jack Black, David Cross, you know, people who are fucking hilarious. Like, from the second you see them, you are smiling and you can't wait to hear whatever they're going to say. And I just don't have that energy. But I have an earnestness. Maybe it's from growing up in Naperville, Illinois, and maybe it's from being raised Catholic in a somewhat strict Catholic family. Super strict Catholic family. We went to church on Halloween. Anybody else? Did anyone else else have to go for All Souls Day? Do you remember that in your costume in church? Anyway, I have an earnestness about me that I thought, also lends itself to action and might work there, so for now.
We'll premiere something right now, and I would just appreciate it if everyone would not, don't film the screen, and if you see someone next to you that is have their phone out and aiming at the screen, punch them in the face. Eddie from Comic-Con said I can say that. You cannot say that I can say that. You know what I mean? We want to make sure we can bring clips like this to Comic-Con every year, and if they leak, it really sucks.
It was sometimes can be hard to share each other, share with each other. If somebody's struggling with a chapter in their life. And one of the films that we watched as a family and brought us joy and connected us was Jackie Chan Police Story. Can you believe it? Of all the movies. And I put this movie on, and the kids were younger, much younger, and they loved it. And we shared this thing, and we probably watched it 2 or 3 times. And I always wanted to do, and I still want to do, a movie like an early Jackie Chan film. But when I did Nobody, I knew that in order to be taken seriously, I'm going to have to do the action hard. I'm going to have to make it rough. Because if I try to be kind of sweet about it, then it's like, well, you're not even trying to do an action movie, man. You're either going to go for it, fail miserably, or forget it. Don't even do it. You're either doing it or you're not. So it's an intense movie, Nobody won, and it's harsh. But in the second film, and I pressured a lot to get this in. This is the closest to a Jackie Chan fight I can get. And the rest of the action in the movie leans more towards Nobody Won, and the great director of this film, Timo Tchajanto, makes some pretty intense, dark stuff. So all the other fights in Nobody 2 are not this tone. But I love this one. I'm so thankful I get to do something that in my mind is a bit of an homage to Jackie. And so here you go. What dance do we have in the audience? How do you like that line? Now no one gets the phone.
So we were sent...
and there's a lot more to it than that. The fight goes on. Great.
A few people sent in some video questions. The first one comes from David Leitch and Kelly McCormick, who are the producers, and David Leitch has directed a number of movies.
Look, Derek Kolstad decided to give Hutch a vacation. But here's what changed. Derek's first outline of this, I hope he doesn't mind me saying it, because it's a fun story, was Hutch and Becca in Italy. Remember they talked about going to Italy? And he had written an outline, and very early on in the outline I'm reading it, and it says Hutch is in a gondola, and he flips a tarp back, and there's all these guns. And my wife looked at the outline, she read it, Naomi, and she's kind of smiling, and she goes, we get to go to Italy? And I'm like, yeah, that could be fun, man. So I'm thinking about it for 2-3 days, not long, and I go, the minute he's on a gondola throwing a tarp back and there's guns, he's James Bond. He's Jason Bourne. He doesn't get to go to Italy. No, that's a different movie. And I said to Derek, I said, he can't. My wife wants to go to Italy. I want to go to Italy. We don't get to go to Italy. Neither does Hutch. And Derek, and we talked about Wisconsin. Derek's from Wisconsin. I went to the Dells when I was a kid on vacation. My family went on 2 vacations, once to the Dells and once to the Illinois State Fair. Family of 7, so they didn't have the money to go on vacation, but we did get to go to the Dells, and so I wanted to set this at the Dells. That was my dream. The truth is, besides for the tax break, you don't get. The Dells is actually really nice now, and there's tons of like amazing water parks, so it was like too good. I wanted Hutch to take his family to the place he thought was great when he was 9 or 8, and now his kids are like 13 and 18, and they're like, what? This isn't great. But you know, that kind of mistake you make when you're a dad or a mom, and you kind of just don't, you don't notice the kids growing up, and you say, you're gonna love this, I loved it. Yeah, you loved it when you were 8, I'm 18. But, so anyway, that's where the vacation came from, was Derek had that in the very first original outline, and then it shifted from an exotic world traveler vacation to a fairly common one that a normal family can take. He's in the film as my dad, and he's great, and he kicks ass, and he showed up every day with a big smile, and we shot nights, we shot through the whole night, and he there the whole time, ready to go, 5 a.m., great energy, great attitude, just one of the great people in this business, one of the great presences on screen. We're so lucky to have him and nobody too. The question is, do I always clap for Chris Lloyd, I'll tell you. Do I like fighting with my hands or guns? Look, I go with hands. It's just more fun. You're just more engaged with it. I mean, I learned how to hold a gun and aim it right, and it was taught by a great SWAT team, great Navy SEAL SWAT team people who took me on numerous trips to the gun range. But hand-to-hand fighting, which Daniel Bernhardt trained me for, is really super fun. It's a puzzle. You've got to figure it out. You've got to work with the team. Everybody has to work together, and you have to be totally present because someone could get hurt so easily. And it's really one of the reasons I even wanted to do Nobody 2 was I had so much fun doing the fighting and Nobody won. Sharon is in Nobody 2, if you didn't know that already. She was fantastic, amazing, and when we asked her to do it, I wrote her a letter, and my only question was, she's done so many wonderful roles, and she's an incredibly powerful screen presence in all her films, and I said, would you be willing to play a big, broad character? Because for me, one of the joys of Nobody Won was to take this guy, Hutch, and his family, and try to make their intentions as realistic, almost, you could say, indie movie real feeling. So like, I always feel like in Nobody Won, up until he's sitting on the bus, that could be an independent film about a family falling apart, you know, a couple who are going to divorce, you know, it's just that grounded, that small, and then blow it up into a big action film, as big as any James Bond film, which is to say, the villain that we meet is a conceptual human creation, and I didn't know if Sharon would be willing to go that broad. So I right away asked her, right at the top in my letter to her, would you be willing to be that big on screen? So I was thrilled that she said yes, and she did it, she brought it, and she is a super powerful, super evil villain, and the story, the backstory in my mind, and we did use it, but it's not super present in the film, is that this is her hometown, the town that I go to. Because I just love that, the idea of everybody's from somewhere. The bad guy, you know, in the James Bond film grew up in some little town somewhere, you know? So she's just amazing in Nobody 2. I can't wait for you to see it.
In terms of how many you'd like to make?
Somewhat boldly stated, I think there could be 4. character goes, and the core sort of issue, which is, can you maintain, how can you live a civilized life, a family life, and then vent your worst rages on the world? Can those two things exist in a balance, which I don't think they can. And in a movie you can do it, because you can go to a magical place, but in real life, of course, it's never really gonna be okay.
We're almost out of time, so this might be you had one frequent note for your stunt team designing and putting together the fights for the movie, which is make it clumsier and uglier. So why was that appealing to you?
Well, that's going to be my MO in every action film I do. I'm just not the most gymnastic person you'll ever meet. I mean, look, guys, I started training for this movie, Nobody Won. And I did train for 2 years. I trained for more than 2 years with Daniel Bernhardt. When I was doing Better Call Saul, I would do my own training, but he would fly down to Albuquerque once or twice a season and just go to gyms with me and keep my training up. But I could never do like the high kicks. I can't do the gymnastic stuff. And I would be in the stunt gym training, doing the very basics, just the basics of punching and moving. And, you know, in the same gym would be these amazing stunt actors doing flips, doing high kicks. And I would always be so embarrassed. So I just knew I gotta lean into my weaknesses, which is just unrelenting, bludgeoning force, and nothing fancy, no spinning kicks going on from Hutch. And of course that carries over into any action I do in any film. So yeah, so that was, you know, they sometimes show me a choreographed fight and I go, well, I'll do everything in that fight except the fancy shit. Take all that out and turn it into just me headbutting numerous times. So that's going to be my MO if I get to do more action, and I hope I do. I love doing it. It's way more fun than I ever thought it was. And it's been fun to learn about action films from the pros like Daniel Bernhardt and Derek Kolstad, the writer, and David Leitch, and all these people that I've been surrounded by who make all these films that you guys love, and they're pros at it. They care about it as much as I care in my life about sketch comedy. It's been great.
As someone who really, like, I want you to make more Nobody movies, so if you were, you know, basically Nobody 2 is in theaters soon. I forget the release date. You know,
August 15th.
Thank you. August 15th. I really hope you go out and see it. But ladies and gentlemen, Bob Odenkirk.